Hello everyone, it's Amy, and I am here for week 7 of Build Your Stash and Craft. For this week, we got our index dividers, and we got our cutting board, and we got 6 different colors of paint to paint our stencils. And this week, we're making stencils. Now, this paper that comes with your dividers is a really nice shiny paper, so you're going to want to keep that because that will be good for a project. And then with our stencils, all you're going to do is you're going to draw something that you think that you would like a stencil of. Now, a few tips. When I draw like a flower, my petals don't have to be exact, but I have a really hard time drawing a flower. So what I do is I start by drawing a petal, and actually this petal is too big. I drew this petal and I tried to make one and it went off the side of the page and it was huge, and so this petal didn't work. So I drew a smaller petal on another piece of paper that was just like this, and then what I did was I just took this paper and put it over top of the other one where I could see through it, and I drew a petal, and then I turned it a little bit and traced that petal that's underneath, turned it a little bit, traced that petal that's underneath, and that's how I got this flower. And that is this flower that we'll be making. And then I also like to, after I'm done with that flower, then I just go up and just kind of put a little swoop here and go up and put a little swoop here. And I do that all the way around to put a point on the flower. And then I make a flower that has pointy petals instead of the rounded petals. So, but I wanted to share with you, when you're cutting a flower, if you were to just cut around this flower, what your stencil is going to look like is this. It's just going to be a plain outline. So what you have to do when you're cutting a flower is you have to cut inside of each one of the petals, and then that will drop those petals out so that when you stencil, you'll have all of those petals. And then what I also do is I draw around the same flower and I make an outside. So like you could make this red and then put this on top of it and make this purple, and you would have these purple flowers sitting inside that red background, and it looks really pretty that way. So you've got a background and you've got a foreground. So what you do when you make your stencils is you draw out a pattern, and then you just take hair all over that, and then you just take your black permanent marker, and I try and make sure that I stay away from the little holes at the bottom of these, and try and make sure that I'm not super close to the edges. And then what you do is you just draw around your flower, and once you get the whole thing done, then you're going to cut it out. And the reason that on my template that I made for myself, the reason that I put those dotted lines in there is to remind me to cut inside those petals. Because even though I know that, I do forget sometimes, and I always keep these templates with the stencil, because when you store a stencil, you need to have a piece of paper between it and the next one, because otherwise your little bits and parts will start, they like stick together. They get all tangled up with each other. And there we go. So, and it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. You know, here I'm a little bit off my line, and here I'm a little bit off my line. I don't mind with that. These are just handmade stencils. You know, basically the way I look at it is they're meant to look handmade. They're not supposed to look like something that was made at a factory, you know, and be exactly like anyone else's. So this is yours. And then the way you're going to cut it is you want to just put your blade out, and you want just one blade out. You don't want a whole bunch because it gets kind of bendy. And sorry about that. My phone quit on me again. I don't know what's going on with my new phone, but last week I recorded a 34-minute video in parts, and then I deleted them all once they were downloaded and looked good. And this week it let me do 4 minutes, and those have all been deleted, so I should be able to do the same amount, but I don't know. Okay, so what I was saying was, so what you're going to do after you get your razor blade is you're going to just start, and I've already done some of these petals, you are just going to start on the inside of your line and go around the inside of this petal. Now my dotted lines are in here quite a ways. I don't want to go in that far, but that is just for me to remember, cut inside the petal. Sometimes I even make myself notes on my templates. So, but you just start inside the line and cut, cut, cut. And I've not cut out the circle part yet, and we're not going to cut out the whole circle, but I'll show you that in just a second. I'm going to show you how to cut inside. I'm just going to go just inside this line, and I'm going to start here. Now I need to be careful. This one, this petal here, I actually cut it all the way over to inside this petal. And the reason I did that was because I didn't have any part of the circle. It almost came to a point. So I brought this over a little bit, which means I'm going to have to look for where that line is, where that cut is, which is right here. And I'm going to have to move over just a little bit so that I don't cut that line. And now I'm going to, and that's just right there at the bottom. And when I cut my stencils, I usually hold in front of my blade after I've cut, just to kind of hold my plastic down. Okay, now I've passed where that other petal came over, so I'm going to go out to my line and I'm going to cut just inside the line. If you pick up your knife, make sure that you get a good spot to put it back into. It's best to try and not pick up your knife very often when you're cutting one, like I'm cutting one petal. So I want to try and I turn my plastic as I go. Okay, and I want to kind of look down here to where my line is to make sure that I'm not going to come too close to it. I'm going to stay inside this line and stop at my circle. Now I have all of these cut except for the circle. Now what I'm going to do on each one is I'm going to cut just a little, like a half, well not even a half round. I'm going to just cut a little round there from the start of where this petal is cut. This is so hard with the blue. From the start of where the petal is cut to the end. So I'm just going to basically cut off that petal. I'm going to say this petal starts right here. So that's where I'm going to put my knife on. And I'm going to go half round, or I'm going to go around that circle a little bit till I get to the other side of that petal. Just like that. Now this petal is not cut down far enough to my circle, so I need to go down just a little bit. Okay. I'm making it harder than it really is. Okay, so there we go. And now I'm going to do a half round here. I need to bring this one down a little bit to the circle because I didn't, and this one too, because I didn't actually go down to the circle. And then I'm going to cut around the circle just at the end of that petal, and that petal is very small at the bottom. And it's still attached right here, so I need to get that off carefully because that's a very thin, it's very thin between those two petals, so I want to be very careful not to rip that part of my stencil. And there we go. Now my petal is off. And then I'm just going to find out where this one starts and just make a piece of the circle there, stopping at the other side. And the biggest thing is you do just need to, just be careful. You don't want to get almost to the end of a stencil and, cut off a part that you didn't want to cut off. Go around the circle here from one side of the petal to the other, making sure that I stop. There we go. And the last one, just go around that circle like that. And there we go. And that's what when we put our paint on that, we're going to have that flower. Now I've cut around this one, and I just kind of wanted to show you. Remember, if you've picked up your knife, make sure that you get to that same spot. And then like I said, what I do is I just turn my plastic, and whenever I get to a point, I don't normally pick up my plastic. I usually just turn it if I can. And then just go around this last one. The one thing you have to be careful about is when you have two cut lines coming together, don't crisscross them. You have to really try hard to stop right where you started. Because if you make a crisscross, a little bit of paint will come out that where you cut extra. I'm going to just get that over there. Okay, so there's our background of our flower, and there's our foreground. Now you keep these because this will make a nice stencil. So let's say you've got a page that's painted all yellow, and you're going to have a yellow flower. You put this on there, and you want the background to be kind of reddish-orange. So you put this on here, and then you do red and orange all around here. And when you lift this up, your yellow will show through. So this is a mask, and the other that we did is a stencil. So always keep your larger parts of your stencil for masks, and you can keep your smaller parts for just other things. So then the way that I'm going to keep this is I'm going to take this, and that's how it's going to store. It's going to store together like that, so that if I ever mess up that stencil, I can make another one. So here's the one that I made, where it's the same flower, except I just put points on the end. And so there's my flower, and then there's my background, and I also have my stencil for that, or my mask for that flower. And at the end, we'll go through how we use the masks. So I also did, and these are just to give you some ideas, I did a feather, and I just drew a feather and then cut it out, and I drew some leaves and I cut them out. Now the leaves are just like the flowers. With the leaves, you're going to cut just inside your lines because you want to leave, that's if you want to leave this vein. If you don't want a vein in there, then you can just cut around the leaf, and it will just be a solid leaf. I like to have a vein, and then I go down underneath and I cut the little stem off. I did leave one just to show you, and the biggest part is it's where you have to leave the vein in the middle, that you have to stay on the outside of the line. And then my tripod's in the way. I'm going to have to lift up. Okay, where did I stop? I stopped right here. And then you can, on the outside, you can go right on the line if you want to. You don't have to go outside of it. You just need to make sure that you meet up with that first cut, just like that. So see, that's going to do our, and then what you do is you go underneath where you've cut, underneath this line, and make just a little tiny cut across for the stem, and then just go down on each side. And I'm going to lift here just so I don't have to keep turning this on you, and then just make those two meet at the bottom, and then just push that out. And there we go. Now we'll have a stem on this one. And again, make sure that you stay inside your line when you're cutting that center vein, because that's going to leave that there for us. And then just go around the outside and meet up with the top cut. And that's really like your most important thing, is to pay attention to where that top cut is, and try and make sure that a point just comes to a point and doesn't have any extra. Like if you put a slice in your paper, when you go to stencil this, the paint will go through that slice even though it doesn't look all cut out like this. So there we go, there's our leaves. And again, we have the feather mask to go along with our feather. So that's that one. Then I did a brick wall, which I hate cutting brick walls, so I only did, and I hate drawing them, I only did a little bit, and then when I did draw this, I traced this, and then I just moved it down and I traced it again. And I drew my leaves until I had a leaf that I liked. This was the leaf I actually wound up doing. I didn't like those two. And then these are just some little blobs that I drew. And these are just like my practice ones, and then I actually would make a template for each one to trace around and keep. I did a heart, and I can't find my mask for my big heart. And then I did excuse me. And then I just did all these little hearts. And I just drew them on there just randomly. You just do them however. And like when I did the heart, start at the point, and then just go around, trying not to lift your plastic if you don't have to. And then when I got to the top, I just, oh, I didn't come down into that point. I definitely want to do that. Just kind of turned my plastic and just kept on going. If you can just keep that point down there, it's really quite easy. And sometimes your plastic will actually just, you can kind of just even move the plastic instead of moving the knife. And the plastic will just slide right up your knife and cut your... And so that's how I cut my hearts. And then you're going to want to keep these little ones too, because you can use them for something later. And here is where I did the, this is where I did the brick and the blobs. And I have not cut out all my bricks yet, because like I said, well, yesterday I was cutting so long that my finger got to hurting right here, like when you're young and you write for a long time. The way that I do cut my bricks is, I'm going to actually stop this and upload it, and then I'm going to come back and show you the bricks, because I don't want this to not upload. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back to show you how I cut the brick wall, and all I did was I lined up with my line with my ruler. It just seemed to make it easier, and then I just cut from the start to the end of each brick, trying to make sure that I actually like started and stopped where the line went across, so that when I cut the other side they would be even. So I just did it like this, then moved my ruler over, and it will make them a little bit straighter, which I was not as concerned with straight as I was with ease. It was just easier to have the ruler there and just go that way. And I don't know why, that's just the way that I feel, is that it's easier. So I did like that. And then with the larger ones, I just lifted up both sides like this and then just cut the end. And so I just did that. With the smaller ones, I can't get my scissors in there. This one, my scissors don't want to close. Uh-oh, look what I did. I cut right through the other side. So there is a way to fix that. If you ever have a part on your stencils that is broken, oh, that one too. And actually I didn't cut through it. I think what I did was just the way I was pulling up on the scissors. With the smaller ones, I just cut from the line to the line, like this, and then pop those out. There we go. Yeah, I think my scissors actually like just pulled up on that and made it, and broke it right there. Just pick these ones up, going the other way. Just pick them up and give them a snap. And then the way to fix your broken pieces would be to just put a very tiny piece of masking tape. And because this is so thin, I will definitely need to cut a piece and very carefully put it in there. If it's along an edge, then you can, it's a little bit easier to put your masking tape on. Like, see if you can see this right here. Okay, I don't know if you can really see it, but right here, instead of going straight across, it rips up like that. In that case, I'll just take a piece of masking tape and put it right straight across where my line is to the other line, and it will cover up that little spot that's missing right there. So, and then with these ones, I will have to try and put the masking tape. It'll have to be cut as thin as that yellow line and put it in there like that. So, but that's how you cut those, and I'm not going to cut any more of those right now. But, and then the next one I did was just large circles and large squares. Keep your masks. Don't forget to do that. And with the larger pieces, you can just cut with your knife in the center and then use your scissors, just go in with your scissors and cut around your piece. But with this one, I just did circles and squares. And these are larger sizes. And then kept the masks for that. And for the circles, I just did a fruit cup and a Tylenol lid and a milk jug lid. So that's how I got my 3 circles, and then with the squares I just used my ruler. And the final one that I did in the full size is I did squares and lines, and these are my stripes and those are my squares. And then again, keep your stripe masks. Keep your piece of paper as a backing, keep your template. And then I did smaller ones that fit inside. I'm going to take this away now. That just fit inside of here. And what I did was I just measured the size of my pockets, and then I cut my pieces of paper to fit, drew my thing on there, and I cut my plastic to fit, and then I made stencils for that. And I have the squares here, and then I have the circles here, and then I keep my templates, what I drew, keep that between them, so that, because what happens is, and these ones are probably not as bad as others, but they wind up getting stuck with each other, and then they can rip and they can pull each other apart. So if you keep your piece of paper that you drew it on between there, not only will you have your pattern if you need it again, but your stencils are not going to stick together. So, and this one I'm not going to cut right now. I'll cut it later, but I just wanted to show you how I just did those like that. And I have enough room in here. I put 3 in each pocket, so I actually have some red ones I can still do and some green ones I can still do. And then I put paper of the correct size in the back. And I did use my, these come with your dividers. They're just little that you can write on. And I did use those on each one of my large ones where it still has that at the top. And I just marked them stripes and squares and circles and squares and that type of thing, so that as I'm going through them, you know, I can just kind of look at the top and see what that is. So, alrighty, I am going to stop this right here and upload it, and then I will be right back with just a quick file for those, and then we'll paint with them. Okay, I'm back, and I wanted to just really quickly show you how the piece at the top where I showed you there was that little nick out of it, I covered it. And then the ones here where I actually cut them, I put masking tape on those, and all I did was just take a piece of masking tape, cut a really thin strip because these little strips are thin, and then I just put it across there. Because there's actually a piece missing between these two, between here and here, that's going to stick to the back, because that masking tape is sticky on the back where it comes together here. So I'm just going to take the other half of that little strip and put it on there to cover up that sticky part. So that's how you fix those, and you can fix it that way. Remember how I told you if you were to accidentally nick across here that your paint would go through? Well, if I had a big nick there and my paint was going through, I could just take some masking tape and I could just put it right there where that nick is, cover it up, and then that would stop that paint from going through. So nothing is ever totally ruined. You can always fix it some way. So that's that. I was going to show you how to quick make a folder. Very easily take a cereal box. I just opened it up like this, and this is not wide enough to hold my, let me get them here. It's not wide enough to hold this sheet, and I don't want my tabs sticking out the top because I don't want them getting floppy. So I'm going to fold it at this fold mark, basically fold it in half, and now that's going to be big enough to hold the whole thing. So I'm just going to take this box hold it like that. I want my box to be as tall as my little oh, whatever you call those, my tabs there. So I'm just going to just eyeball it, put a mark there, and I'm just gonna hold it tight and give it a cut because it doesn't have to be perfect. If you know, you can now decorate this in any way, shape or form. You can cover it with some paper, use your stencils, your stamps, your washi tape. I do like to fold them this way when I'm done. And that is just to just burnish this fold here. I like to fold them that way just so that I see the cardboard part. I don't care that there's the Cheerios are on the inside, but I do like to have the outside just be cardboard. So then all of my stencils can just be fit right in here, just like that. And now they're going to be nice and safe, and I'll stick them in with all of my other stuff. Alrighty, well, I have some paper here, so let's try a few of these out. And I always test my stencils usually right after I cut them because I just want to make sure that I like the way they look. Sometimes they need to be trimmed up here or there, or I do have a place where I overcut where I need to put a piece of masking tape, and I like to do it right after I cut them because then I know they've basically been tested, I guess you might want to say, so that if I'm in the middle of a project, I know that I can pull them out and I'm not going to have like a great big blob where I had overcut or something like that, or I'm not going to like the looks of a certain feather. If I don't like the looks of, like, let's say I don't like the looks of this, leave it all after I stencil it. Sometimes I'll just take my black marker and put an X through it, or I'll put a piece of tape across it, just so I know, don't use that one. You really don't like that. Okay, so for your paint, you're going to just use your makeup sponges. After you put the paint on the sponge, you're going to tap it off until your sponge is dry. Doesn't look like it's, you know, got any kind of blobs of paint on it. And then you just hold your stencil down and tap up and down. Don't rub it all, because if you rub like that little thin strip, if you rub, that's going to move back and forth. And then all the time that you took to cut that strip out was wasted, because if it moves back and forth, it's just going to get the green right underneath of it. And so this, you just pounce up and down until you don't have any paint left, and then you just reload you don't have to reload it every time. So I'm just going to grab a little bit more, and I'm grabbing it from where I pounced it off, not from the pile of paint, because I do need more. Whoops. And I just put a lot of paint on there, so make sure that I get it nice and flat. That's the biggest thing. The hardest thing with stencils is, and a lot of people think it's the stencil's fault, is that you have too much paint on your brush or too much paint on your sponge. And always, even if you have a stencil brush, they're made to go up and down. If you go back and forth, you will get paint under your stencil. Even going up and down, you could possibly get paint on your stencil. And especially if you have too much paint on your sponge or your brush. But the best way to make sure that you don't have a whole big mess, the best way to do it is to go up and down. And there we go. And then you could even go in with another color and just put a little color here and there before you take your stencil off. And so this is what our leaves look like. And I think that they look really good. I love them. So, and then what you can do, if you have one of these, you know, like wash tub things that you do your dishes in when you go camping, you can just set that to the side with some soapy dishwater in it, and then just take your stencil and just throw it in there so that that doesn't get hard. I personally don't usually clean off my stencils. I just leave it there. If I start having a problem where my paint is transferring, then I will clean my stencil. And I'll do it the same way. I'll put it in a tub of dishwater, let it set for a little while, and then just go in and very lightly kind of rub, and then set it on a counter with paper towel underneath of it and paper towel on top of it, and just press down. You don't want to rub, because all of these little parts are very delicate, and if you bend them, it won't stencil the same next time. So let's see, I have there we go. I have 4 colors and I have 4 sponges. We'll just do the feather really quick and see how that one turns out. Feathers are usually my favorite. I love them. but I don't know exactly how I got my points on this one. So we'll find out. Now we're getting a little bit like, I don't want to say that. There's like square marks here in the center of our flower. That's partly because I have a lot of paint, more than I really should have had on my sponge, and it's just because the end of that sponge is going to leave that mark. But so long as you move fairly fast, go over those spots fairly quickly, don't let them dry. When you pounce over next to it to finish filling in your feather, those marks will all blend together and you won't have big lines on there from the edge of your sponge. And so there is the feather, and that turned out pretty cool. A little bit out of the lines up here where I had the smallest ones, and you know what, it's a feather, they're supposed to be wispy anyways, so that does not bother me, so I'm going to leave that one like that. If it bothered me, I would try and trim it up a little bit. So shall we try, we'll do one of the flowers. I don't know how long anybody wants to stay here, and this has been a bit already, so we'll do one of the flowers quick, and then I will upload this part, and then we'll go to what we need for next week. So I'm really quickly going to, what am I going to do? I'm going to do orange in the background. Well, that was not good. I just moved the whole thing. What I'm going to do really quickly is that. And you can also tape these down. Just take a piece of your masking tape, and especially if you're taping it, I'm not doing good here. I'm pulling with my fingers. Take a piece of your masking tape, put it on your shirt or your arm a couple of times and pull it off. That will make it low tack so that it doesn't rip your paper, and then just tape your stencil right to your paper so that it does not move. Now I've got a little bit of purple in here because I went too close to the purple on my paint palette. So we have purple and orange together, but that's okay. It's a background, so it won't hurt anything. If I think I have too much, if I've patted it up but I still think I have too much paint on it, I pop it over to the edge a couple of times to get a little bit of that paint off. Okay, so there's our background. That's what our background looks like. And I know that purple and orange make mud, but because I have the purple already out, I am going to, and when I draw this flower and this flower, how do I want to say that? I trace this onto, I've already traced this from my piece of paper. Then I move that piece of paper over and just trace the outline. I make sure I keep the paper in the same orientation so that when I slide this over, those are the petals that fit. Because remember, my petals are not all exactly the same. So, and then even when you cut them, this one's got a little bit of a point out here, and so does that one that don't match up. But I'm just going to put this in here a little bit. It doesn't even have to be solid, but I'm just going to show you how you can use your background and your foreground to make your flower. And then you don't have to use the background at all. You can use the foreground by itself, or you can use the background and doodle on it. You can do whatever you would like to do with that. Okay, I'm going to say that's good enough. And there we go. There's the background with the foreground. Put a little swirl in the middle. Alrighty. So that's how we use our stencils, and how we make our stencils, and how we store our stencils. So I am going to upload this, and I will be right back with next week's items. Okay, back for the final part. I forgot to show you how the masks work. So with a mask, you put your mask on something that you want to not paint on, paint around it, and then when you take the mask off, voila, you haven't got any paint where you didn't want it. And so that's why these are so great. You can use them for all sorts of things. This is the one that we already did. I thought that I would show you all of them. We also did that one, but here is the other flower with the backing and the foreground. These are the two small ones that I have in my accordion vial. And that's how those turned out. And here is our wall. Now if I wanted to use the wall, I could just repeat this over and over, or I could cut the whole side. And here is my blobs, the lines, the squares. And actually, I forgot to cut 2 squares right there. So I had to go in and do that. And then the circles and the squares, and these make great masks, just like that flower. We've got our hearts and our big heart. And of course, you can use any portion of this that you want to. I usually do, because I usually don't need this much stencil, so I usually do kind of like basically 2 halves, and I may use this and not that at all. Or I might actually just use a little bit of this. So those are the stencils, and I think that they turned out nice. And you know, you can just look at stencils online and just draw your own however you like. So, and then what we're going to need for next week. Next week we are going to need 3 pieces of corrugated cardboard, all the same size. And you want, you know, like the actual thick corrugated, you know, box cardboard. And next week we are going to make a tack board along with decorated tacks. So we'll need 3 pieces of corrugated cardboard, all the same size, some duct tape, some tacks, and this all came from the Dollar Tree. And then I got a 2-pack of towels, and I was going to use a pink one, so I got the pink duct tape to match, but I've decided to use the green one because that matches my box better. And I'm going to put this in the top cover of my roll top box. So but it really doesn't matter because this is going on the back anyways, so it doesn't matter that it's pink. And then some nail polish. So I got a 2-pack, so I actually got 3 for the price of 2. And I got a gold glitter because I already have a silver glitter. And then this one is metallic. I think both of these are metallic. So, and we're going to use these to decorate our thumbtacks along with flowers and all sorts of things. So you can choose any kind of towel that you like. And you know, if you have like an old t-shirt at home, an old t-shirt works great. Material works good to put over top of a tack board, because when you put the tacks through and then you take it out, the material kind of heals itself. Whereas if you were to put paper on top of a tack board, wherever you put that pin in and then took it out, there would be a hole all the time. There's still a hole under this material in your cardboard, and eventually you may have to change your cardboard, but it will last quite a long time. But I wanted that so that I could keep my ideas of things that I want to do, you know, tacked right there to the tack board. And I thought it would be fun to decorate some thumbtacks. So that's what we're going to need for next week. Towels, cardboard, nail polish. And if you have a shirt or something at home that you want to use instead of a towel, then, you know, you'll have $1 left over. You can either save that or get a different another nail polish or something like that. So thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it. And I hope that you all have an outstanding day. Bye-bye.